Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'll kick off with some simple housekeeping, if that's okay. First of all, please be reminded that this webinar will be recorded. May I ask for everyone to remain on mute during the webinar. I've got my assistant Sabrina, who'll be probably muting you anyway, but should that fail, please try and remain on mute. So today we're hosting our RetrofitWorks webinar session about internal wall insulation with Warmshell, featuring Dominic Putman from Lime Green Products. This webinar is CPD accredited, and at the end of this presentation and webinar, you will be able to collect the CPD credits using the QR code which will appear on screen. It is worth noting that the QR code reminder will only be activated at 12:25 p.m. That's just to ensure that people have actually completed the webinar, so have earned their points, so to speak. So some quick introductions. My name's Jason Marple. I'm the Business Development Manager for RetrofitWorks, and I'm your host today. Presenting, we have Dominic Putman, the Head of the Marketing and Business Development from Lime Green Products. And his presentation is about using Warmshell internal wall insulation and the benefits of it. This innovative product offers a natural, cost-effective and highly efficient insulation solution, utilizing sustainable materials like carbon negative wood fibre and recyclable lime mortars. Our presenter Dominic will be sharing the practical reasons why using Warmshell is a good product for insulation. And during the presentation, we'd really like some engagement from you. So please feel free to drop a question throughout the presentation in the chat section. And Dominic and our RetrofitWorks coordinators, our RCs on the call, will address a few of them at the end. And I'll be keeping an eye on them as we go, and I'll pick out some perhaps poignant or interesting questions. Any unanswered questions the team will address in the coming days, and we'll provide you with a video and PDF presentations for your future reference. So without any more hold-ups, I will now pass over to Dominic for the presentation. Over to you, Dominic.
Thank you, Jason. So obviously, very pleased to see you all today. Nice to meet everyone, and would like to put in a special word and thank RetrofitWorks and Sabrina and the team for giving us this opportunity to talk to you all about our Warmshell internal insulation system. But it's been a great opportunity, and we look forward to hearing back from you all with your questions, which will be answered at the end of my presentation. So we are dealing today with our internal wall insulation system from Warmshell, which was designed by Lime Green Products, which we've been installing for many, many years in different projects across the United Kingdom. In brief, just to give you a sort of taster for what we're dealing with. In a nutshell, the benefits would include, for example, a situation we can apply as little as 40 millimeters of Warmshell is compliant with regulations Part L1B. With just 60 millimeters of insulation, you can achieve up to a 70% reduction in heat loss. The wood fibre insulation panel buffers heat due to its thermal mass, and this increases comfort levels all the year round. It's a very versatile system in as much as it can be installed throughout the year, including in bad weather times, and would allow for phased insulation rollout if needed. It overcomes the restriction with external insulation, which obviously relate to access to property, conservation areas, complex building geometry, excessive rainwater goods, etc. It is a lime-based system which aids to maintain good air quality through the absence of biocides and toxic chemicals, as lime is a natural antibacterial, and the system will significantly improve air tightness. So if we just look quickly at why this system is so special and is a very well developed and thought through solution for retrofitting insulation to traditional buildings. we have put together detailed guidances and documentation to ensure that anyone who is adopting the system is going to get the maximum benefit from it. And this is a 4-step process. First of all, the assessment needs to take place where your building is looked at in careful detail to ensure it's suitable for such an installation. The system and building can be designed together to ensure that it would be well integrated with the existing structures. The installation stage clearly is critical, which must be adopted and used on suitably prepared walls. And then finally, we provide a warranty and a number of certificates which support the system. So the first step of the process, as I mentioned, is site assessment, and we provide both a site guide and a checklist. And the key elements of this really are this is just a flavour of it, and all the details are available on our website. But it will, broadly speaking, look at type of wall, the type of mortar that's previously been used, internal lining and finishing of those areas to be treated, what the external building looks like, condition of that building, and obviously special considerations. So a very important thing to be looked at in balance when you're choosing any IWI system are these key elements, which are a combination of thermal performance, risk to the building itself, and the impact on space. So it's important to have a clear understanding of the potential risks that could occur as a direct result of applying internal wall insulation, and a clear understanding of what the spatial impact is on the property, both physical and aesthetic. So part of the consideration in terms of the risk to the building is obviously moisture control. Now, this internal system is compliant with Building Regulations Part L for the management of moisture under BS 5250, and that 5250 process sets out the design guidance that should be followed when specifying any internal wall insulation. To comply with the revision of the same, hydrothermal modelling tools that conform to BS 15026, such as WFI Pro, should be used in this instance. Standard dew point condensation risk analysis calculations from BS 13788 are no longer compliant to calculate moisture risk for internal walls. So we're talking, I've made reference obviously to WFI Pro. The Warmshell Internal system has been assessed using WFI Pro, and it's suitable across the full range of thicknesses in exposure zones 1 and 2. You'll all be familiar with the map of the United Kingdom, and everyone's aware that the west side of the country is, broadly speaking, much wetter than the east side. So if the specification is for an 80mm or 100mm of insulation in exposure zones 3 or 4, which are west and close to west, or for any amount of insulation exposure 4, a further WFI Pro assessment is required. Hydrothermal modelling depends on the property, its location and materials which are being used on the property. So again, as an element of the moisture control, clearly moisture is one of the greatest risks, or that we're doing potentially the wrong thing in terms of moisture that's already occurring in the building. And it's important to understand that when insulating, whatever that material is, it's inherently affecting the building physics, and so the building will be changed thereafter. building fabric could be compromised, or more seriously, the health of occupants could be harmed. So the table on the right just shows you the risks associated with high or low relative humidity. 30 to 60 RH optimum zone is the optimum zone for healthy living. And if you use Warmshell and a breathable moisture buffering materials, help to achieve this optimum zone. So part of our credentials are that we worked for over a period of over 7 years with SPAB to help them produce a report around moisture. And this is available on our website, but also through SPAB as well. And so it was a building performance survey that they conducted, looking at typical residential dwellings. And in our particular case, the wood fibre was used as one of these examples and was applied to the end terrace property that you see there in the image, which is in Shrewsbury in North Shropshire. And the wall appears to be able to evaporate sufficient moisture over a 12-month seasonal cycle to prevent moisture from accumulating or building up within its fabric. You'll see there the monitoring positions of the equipment, and this was run over, as I said, over a period of just over 7 years. So the addition of a 40mm layer of this wood fibre resulted in a 68% measured reduction in heat loss. Like that of a brick substrate, the wood fibre insulation is porous, permeable and capillary active. It's able to hold and move moisture as a liquid through its pores, as well as hold moisture as a vapour, increasing opportunities for evaporation. So still thinking a little bit further on moisture control and the risks associated, we seek to address this to an acceptable level in a 4-step process. The internal design guide for Warmshell lays out the principles of how the system works with building physics. The assessment guide is to help architects and designers assess the building, especially for leaks, defects and built-in moisture. We do not check or process that outcome. Ventilation assessment guide by the client's M&E engineer or designer. And then finally, wind-driven rain assessment is according to the wind zones and as given in the documents that I referred to just now. So here we have an example of a system, in fact, in social housing in Lambeth in London. In terms of that image, so insulating as an approach, we advocate that effectively it's a question of looking at fabric first and addressing any air tightness issues. The detailing clearly is paramount importance. We consider the U values for roof walls, windows and floors, and then come to a conclusion, having assessed all of these elements, as to what thickness of insulation is going to be required. Now, with the Warmshell internal system, we are compliant with best practice guidance from the government for internal wall insulation, and the lowest risk designs are consistent with the existing moisture strategy of the building. For solid wall or traditional buildings, this is likely to be a moisture open, so capillary active insulation such as wood fibre and vapor open adhesives and finishes shall be chosen by under best practice guidance. Air leakage into internal wall insulation system carries a high amount of moisture and significantly increases the risk of interstitial condensation. So dot and dab approaches have the highest risk of interstitial condensation, should be avoided as they leave air gaps behind the insulation. So you can see that this is part of the best practice guidance as presented by the government several years ago. Some of you may be familiar with this construction pyramid. We have borrowed this from an independent institute, research institute in Copenhagen in Denmark, who put this together. Obviously, we all know that Scandinavians have a lot of valuable experience around insulation, given the weather patterns that they have in that region. And I don't think it'll be a surprise to many of you that comparing a PIR foil-faced insulation panel which emits in excess of 700 kilograms of carbon dioxide per cubic meter, that a wood fibre insulation panel locks up in excess of 200 kilograms of carbon dioxide per cubic meter. So a compelling argument for the adoption of wood fibre insulation if we are keen to think about the environment and long-term sustainability of the planet. Here I'll just very quickly show you the physical build-up of the Warmshell internal system. Where required, you'll see there on the right-hand image, we're pointing at the areas around reveals and windows and doors, where you can use trim sections of wood fibre, or in combination with or alternative with aerogel blanket and the correct adhesive to fix that. In terms of the main wall areas, you will see there that a layer of Warmshell board adhesive is applied to the back of the wood fibre board, and then it's a very simple process of applying solo one-coat plaster in 2 passes with a reinforcing mesh at the halfway point. So we have specialized in ensuring that all parties involved for the adoption of this system have a very clear understanding and assistance in how to install it, and what the principles are to ensure the longevity of the building that it's being added to. So our example here, dealing with air tightness and the detailing for architects, covers the key principles for reducing thermal ridging in these areas of the property. So there you can see floor details on the left, internal wall, intermediate floors, internal walls, and abutting roof insulation areas. All these drawings are available in our design guides via our website if you look up for internal insulation at lime green. Again, I touched on this just now. If it's required and the access areas are too tight for application of wood fibre insulation in a much thinner layer potentially, then this can be resolved by adopting use of the aerogel blanket and the correct silicate mineral-based adhesive, which is a product from our silicate range. So just to emphasize really that one of the attractive benefits of our internal system is that it's very simple, very few component materials required. If, as I will look at more closely in a second, if the substrate that it's being applied to is not very, very flat, then we recommend that a skim leveling coat be applied, and this could be done either using our Duro base coat, which again is a breathable lime, or our ultra insulating plaster. And then Warmshell board adhesive is applied onto the back of the wood fibre boards, 2 passes of solo one-coat plaster. Some architects like to specify mechanical fixings, but this is actually not necessary, as our board adhesive looks after that, and this is an internal application, not external. And then plasterable air tightness tapes, and if required, the aerogel blanket silicate aerogel adhesive. So via our website or our YouTube channel, you'll be able to watch a video which takes you through the entire installation process from start to finish. Here I'm just cherry picking 2 or 3 specific elements as time is restricted today. So you'll see there on the right-hand side the application of the board adhesive directly onto the back of the wood fibre board. And preparation of the substrate, as I touched on earlier, is very important. So all existing features need to be removed, including wallpaper, impermeable coatings, gloss, eggshell based, everything needs to come off. And then importantly, obviously, services, electrical services, and other things can be rerouted away from the wall and then channeled through the wood fibre very carefully. We show the detail of how to do this on the installation video that I just mentioned. But important for everyone to be aware that all plasterboard needs to be removed, and other plasters or gypsum-based plasters which will not be breathable. So part of this preparation I just mentioned just now, there are 2 possible solutions, either applying lime green Duro or the Ultra, which is an insulating plaster, as a skim coat, and obviously you have to be conscious of the required drying times once these are applied, and give the product time to work. And just quickly here, just to show you as part of the installation in terms of the wood fibre panels themselves, it is a tongue and groove system, and so it's important to work to a recommended layout of the boards. You can see here the use of a wavy edge blade, which are details of which are available in the installation guide as a circular saw solution. Here again, just emphasizing application of Warmshell board adhesive with a tooth trowel over the full surface of the back of the installation. It is important to not simply do dot and dab, as this will leave cold areas and bridges behind the insulation. So ensure the substrate is flat and then fit the boards in a brick bond pattern with a minimum 200mm offset between courses. So just to summarize again, a short list of important benefits of the Warmshell internal system. It carries an independently accredited keyword certificate, which obviously is a testing system, and all elements of the system have been tested by the independent accreditor. It carries a reaction to fire classification. We provide a 25-year materials warranty, providing the system is installed correctly. We provide installer training with a certificate for anybody interested in attending a day's training event, which would involve, hands-on application of materials and actually working with the system physically. We provide CPDs to interested parties, whether it's for specifiers, installers, and other industry people. And the keyword accreditation means that the product can be used by Trustmark approved installers, who in turn can provide an insurance-backed guarantee to their clients. And this slide just literally illustrates very clearly the significance of that relationship. The accreditation generates Trustmark approval in terms of the installers, and those same installers then have the opportunity to provide insurance-backed guarantee to the client. So the final stages, obviously, of the installation, we have rolled this into what we refer to as our maintenance guide, but essentially there are options in terms of finishing of the painting of of the solo plaster. Some people don't paint it at all, but if obviously it's going to be part of the internal decoration of a property, then there are a number of options: lime wash or lime paint, silicate, mineral-based paints, or other breathable paints. The fixings is also dealt with in this guide. A number of different manufacturers provide suitable fixings, and these are referred to in the same guide. And we also deal with any eventual repairs to the plaster over time, and a final inspection process, which really is part of the site assessment, but comes through at the end of everything. Here's that same example of an internal area in social housing in Lambeth, where they adopted this system. Now, we need to just talk briefly about U values and reducing the energy performance gap. So the table here shows you a selection of wall types, brick and then limestone. And as you look across the table, different thicknesses, depending on what U value people are wishing to achieve, then there are options for different thicknesses of insulation, ranging from 40 to 100 millimeters. If, say, we take a 60 millimeter thickness, which is very common as an internal solution thickness, for a 230 millimeter brick wall, for example, this would, and you can achieve a 0.5 U value and a 70% improvement in heat loss. So the heat efficiency gain is substantial. And you will see that in actual fact, if you go to 100 millimeter, that has more of an impact on your space, but the relative gain is modest compared to even 60 millimeter application. Now, still focusing on this same element of such a system, we were involved with ASBP. Many of you will be familiar with the Alliance for Sustainable Building Products. We've been collaborating with them over a significant number of years, and we had realized that the industry's focus on U values or energy loss for retrofit rather than the energy savings has resulted in many existing properties being over-insulated, increasing condensation risks, or more often not being insulated at all because of the prohibitively high levels of insulation perceived necessary. So by focusing on energy savings rather than just U values and finding this, what we've termed the sweet spot for internal wall insulation depth, we can meet the requirements of the building regulations, achieve significant energy savings, retain more internal floor area, and get a faster payback on our initial investment. So if you look quickly at the table there on the right-hand side, by installing a 60 millimeter thickness of wood fibre insulation, this would provide a thermal performance right in the middle of the allowable zone, and this is according to what building regs would wish us to achieve, and provides almost close to 90% energy saving against the target improved value. If you then look at the 100 or even 120 millimeter application, yes, you can achieve the lower threshold of 0.3 U value, but a lot more insulation is required, and energy saving return starts to diminish. So this is presented in a briefing paper published by the ASBP in the middle of last year, and you can find the full detail of that against this link or on their website. So I referred earlier to our independent fire classification. The system has been independently tested for reaction to fire in accordance with BS EN 13501-1218, and it is given a reaction classification of B S1, DO. B being fire behavior, 1 being smoke production, and 0 against flaming droplets. The classification can be used in conjunction with the fire engineer to assess suitability for projects and specific detailing. Now we know that it's always very important and valuable to be able to access and see details of previous projects. We have a significant number of case studies where our insulation systems have been involved, both internal and external. I have, for the purposes of today's webinar, just cherry-picked 3 or 4. You can see the full details of each and every one of these case studies and our other case studies via our website, but just to pick up a couple here. Top left, you will see an example of a North London apartment which was upgraded with the use of our internal system, and this was adopted within an extension part of the building that was added on. And top centre there, Lambeth Social Housing, is one of a handful of examples where our system has been selected by councils for social housing upgrades, and in this particular case, they upgraded 4 properties on the same street. But one of them, they used our external system as well for one section of a building. But these are all very helpful examples of previous adoption of this system, and I would encourage you to take a look at these when you have a moment via our the knowledge section of our website. So, an important element also to have in mind when you're talking to clients about possible internal systems which will improve their homes. The Warmshell Internal system is presently unique in the UK market. We are the only manufacturer to have an independent accreditation through Kiwa. The system, as I mentioned earlier, carries an independent fire classification. We provide a 25-year materials warranty, providing the system is correctly installed. It holds an environmental performance declaration, and as discussed earlier, we benefit from a 7-year live study of moisture behavior sponsored by SPAB and their research survey study, which I referred to earlier. So in summary, this proposition is very carbon efficient. It locks up 322 kilos of carbon dioxide per cubic meter. There's no guesswork involved. It's a proven, tested system that works well. It's been tested, certified, and proven to perform. Being as a breathable and moisture buffering system, it is healthy for the buildings that it's applied to, and one of the often overlooked benefits of a wood fibre insulation based system is that it buffers temperature, so it keeps the building warm in winter and cooler in the summer, as it will not allow the external heat to come into the building in the way that it would in many other buildings, and that the wood fibre will absorb some of that heat and then re-release it when the external temperature falls. And finally, an often unconsidered benefit of an insulation system is that wood fibre is very efficient at absorbing sound, and this therefore makes the spaces where it's been applied much more peaceful interior areas of those buildings. So we've been focusing on internal wall insulation, but just before I close, just to remind everyone that we also have a very good external wall insulation system. We are presently working on a new accreditation for that system, and clearly we will advise people as and when that is secured. And we also have a fully supported room-in-roof solution for pitched roof buildings or attics, and that solution is available. And I wouldn't want to leave you today without just touching briefly on Lime Green. As a manufacturer, we have been manufacturing lime plasters, renders and mortars since 2002. And we have breathable primers. Last year we launched a hemp binder for application with hemp construction, and Roman stucco there is just a flag. We have a range of specialist plasters and renders that deal with traditional rebuilding and restoration of historic buildings, and in this particular case Roman stucco lime based, which is similar but much preferable option to Portland cement. So that's the end of my presentation. I hope you found that useful, and I will now hand back to Jason for the QA, and thank you all very much for listening.
Thanks, Dominic. That was really insightful, and I think you'll agree. Really, diving into that technical stuff is kind of critical with this sort of thing. So yeah, really great insights, and good to get into the the bones of it. I've had some direct messages with a couple of questions, and I see there's been a few questions in the chat as well. Simon, we're really delighted to have here today with us, is the managing director. So he's been picking up some of the questions in the chat so far. Alex has just put one in though that I'll just touch on, Dominic, if that's okay. And Alex is saying, how well does the EWI system cope with rain before it gets rendered? Perhaps you'd like to provide some information on that.
Yeah, I can answer that. So the boards can be exposed to direct rain for about 6 to 8 weeks. Thereafter, it's okay to keep them left uncovered or unrendered, but they would need to be checked for the moisture content. So essentially they need to be dry, but up to 8 weeks, it's not a problem.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing, actually. One of the questions that I've actually heard from sort of being out and about of people who are considering having this and speaking to contractors is, a homeowner I find will ask questions such as like, we've got a plasma TV or an LED TV, we want to hang it on the wall. How do we kind of go about doing that? People are used to just screwing into masonry and putting a couple of plugs in and screws, but I'm assuming there's a specific way with this kind of installation. Is it a particular site fixing or a certain way of doing it?
Yes, there are 3 options. A pattress block, so you can use a piece of timber as the simplest, worst option, and that you can obviously that's fixed back to the wall and you fix into that, or you can use a high density pattress block made out of high density foam, which does the same but is more insulative. Then there are some specialist fixings from companies such as Fisher Fixings or EJOT, who make standoff fixings, which will easily take a television. They fix back to the masonry, and then they're firmly broken to a degree in the middle, and then you fix into the head of that. So that they take up to several kilos per fixing, more than that even. And then the next one down is a spiral fixing from the same 2 companies again, which is a very coarse threaded plastic fixing which screws into the board, and you screw into that. That will take up to 5 kilo per fixing. And then for much lightweight pitches and that sort of thing, you can just use a wood screw actually, which will hold in the boards themselves.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks, Simon. Interesting stuff. I'm just going to pick up on the chat again. Nikki kindly put a message in there. She says, do you recommend a primer to be applied onto the wall prior to the lime leveling coat? Perhaps you could provide some information on that.
Not always. It's about controlling suction at that point. So you would remove, if it's a dusty wall, you remove the dust, you brush it down, that sort of thing, and you might dampen it, or we have got a suction control primer. You could use that, which would do the same. The suction control primer is breathable, so you've got to be careful at that particular part of the wall, installing something that could become a vapor control layer. So if you used a gritty acrylic primer such, that would be a vapor control layer in the wrong place. So water's the best option, and brushing down in loose, dusty stuff, taking it off the wall, that sort of thing. That's the best answer, and cheapest too.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. Yeah, I suppose it's maintaining that the breathability and the quality of the material, what it's providing, in its nature.
Yes, if you should. So the general rule of thumb is, if to get it right and to comply with the building regs and that sort of thing, is that if it's a solid wall building and it is therefore probably deemed a vapor permeable or built differently, so you kind of respect the vapor. So if it is breathable, you respect that and you carry on with breathable materials for the best results or least risky results.
Yeah, that's good. Ben has just put a question in the chat as well. Ben says, if you do a poor plastering job, is there a specific filler you can use before painting, or does a standard decorator's filler work? I.e., standard filler in limited qualities doesn't limit the moisture performance. So yeah, is a filler that you would recommend, or you have in your kind of in amongst your products? I guess if something is damaged as well or something like that, is there something you could recommend in terms of filling?
Yeah, we do. We have a filler called Solo Filler. It's just works the same sort of way. It's just more vapor open and also importantly alkaline, like the lime, so it kind of fits in with that high pH, which keeps the chance of stuff growing on the wall, in the wall, that sort of thing, much lower. So yes, we do. Comes in a tin, just ready to use. You use it like a standard filler.
Yeah,
just slightly different chemistry.
Yeah, that makes sense. We've got another one. Can moisture within an existing wall affect the wood fibre, especially during rainy days?
That's the whole point, really. It will affect any insulation, but using wood on a solid wall, using wood fibre and this sort of system is deemed the least risky. So wood fibre will buffer moisture, lime will buffer moisture to a certain degree safely, and then allow it to escape when it's available to do so. So that's the whole point, really, of the system. Is it won't be affected. The thermal performance won't be affected up to if you've got a leaking pipe or something, then it's a different matter. But rain, wind-driven rain, and that sort of thing. Yeah, that's what it's designed to cope with. That is the point of the system, is that it will cope with that, deal with it, and not trap it.
Yeah, that's great. Tim says, do you have any Warmshell installers in the south of England at all?
I think Dominic can probably answer that better, but yes, I'm sure.
Yes, there are a number of people that we can put you in touch with. Obviously, it will depend on what area, but yes, but there is a short list that we have at this moment in time, and we are working with new installers all the time, and that number is growing. But yes, if you'd like to contact us after today's meeting, and we will provide you with some details.
Yeah, thanks, Dominic. That's a really kind offer. Ian said, how do you deal with the DIY market?
Right, so that's possible. We've got really comprehensive information on the website with installation instructions. There's four main components. Okay, so it's not well, there's DIY and there's DIY. Some DIYs are really quite handy, and it is possible. It's piecemeal fitting it internally. Okay, so that's a big advantage. You don't have to tackle the whole facade at once. There's four components. They are all pretty simple things to use. I suspect the big difference is someone that's familiar with using it and does it day in, day out. It's going to be a quicker job, and perhaps they earn a living from it. Whereas if it was, if I was doing it, I'd be doing it slower. I wouldn't be earning. It's that sort of thing, and perhaps I wouldn't get as good a finish with the plaster. It's those sort of things. So it's definitely doable. We've had plenty of people that have done it for themselves.
Yeah, and like you say, there's so much information on the web. I've been through the website. There's so much information there that you can kind of get the gist of it pretty well. I'm just thinking about your slides, Dominic, and I noticed I think you brought up a couple of images. It seems like this is quite a popular product for sort of heritage properties and things like that. Do you see a lot of this kind of going into heritage grade 2 listed, or grade 1 star, etc., that kind of stuff?
Well, certainly potentially. I mean, it does have quite a wide reach, because it could equally be used on new build, but then obviously it's a natural fit for timber frame, particularly. So we see it being adopted quite a lot for extensions, but then also in terms of historic buildings, the range of buildings is very wide. For example, we've had the system has been adopted for conversion of, for example, a historic building in Manchester that was previously a warehouse, which was then converted to offices. These sorts of things. And yes, if there are often restrictions on external changes to historic buildings, particularly in anything that's listed or in a conservation area, then it provides a lot of flexibility for that, and then will preserve the the natural features of the building. Yes, obviously there are things that may need to be removed, such as picture rails and these sorts of things. Sometimes in historic locations, there are ways to deal with that. But yes, it is designed for solid wall construction, whether that is brick or stone, and other potentially other forms of block construction. Yes, so very, very widespread, really, from predominantly residential, or as I said, if sometimes older buildings are being converted from an industrial use into living space or commercial offices, then yes, it works well.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks, Dominic. I've just received a DM as well. How long after installation do you have to wait until you can paint? Well, I guess that depends on a few things, right? It's like how long does the plaster take to dry? Is it, it might be in a high moisture situation or something like that. Is there any rule of thumb or anything like that?
Yes. The rule of thumb is, though, the plaster is 10 millimeters thick. So, I mean, the rule of thumb from the Code of Practice of Painting is a week for every 5 millimeters of wet construction. So, we add a bit onto that because you've got a bit of moisture behind the boards as well, and perhaps the wall's going to dry out. So we say 3 to 4 weeks with a water-based emulsion. If it's a listed building, for instance, and you want to use a lime wash, you can do it within a few days. That's not a problem. So, but generally speaking, about 3 or 4 weeks, depending on the exact set. Maybe at the moment it might be slightly quicker. It's very dry at the moment, the weather. And as you say, if it's middle of winter and it's a cold, unheated building, maybe it's a bit slower. But it's in that sort of, it's a few weeks. It's certainly not a few months.
Yeah. Thank you, Simon. Ian's just provided a question. Is there a limit on use dependent on the permeability of the wall? Thinking along the lines of old rubble, built walls, that sort of thing.
We've our on the website we've got a site assessment, and in there there's a guide on which sort of guides you through assessing what you've got and its suitability for. That follows the government's best practice guide for internal wall insulation, in essence. And the limitations in it would be limitations for other systems as well, to be honest. So they don't just narrow it down to ours. For instance, if you are installing internal wall insulation and you've got very thick layers of impermeable paint on the outside of your building, whatever internal insulation system you install, that's going to be a bit of a problem because there's a danger of trapping moisture. So there's those are the sort of limitations are what's happened to the building and how do they affect, has there been damp proofing membrane installed somewhere in it, that sort of thing. I mean, there's answers to some of these. Of course, but they might complicate it. So we've got that assessment form, which people are welcome to send to us, which, I mean, it's really designed for the designer or the installer to guide them, but they are welcome to send it to us for us to have a look, make comment on, and that sort of thing, if that's helpful.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. That's great. Is there any more questions coming in from anybody? Alex has just said, "Are you thinking bungarouche?" I don't know.
Oh, yes. So, yes, that's possible. I think we've had people installed it on that sort of build. Now, if it this is not our requirement, but again, it's a sort of requirement from some of the rewritten standards and that sort of thing. If it's that sort of build or wall type, and it's in an area of high wind and rain, it might need a bit more thought, a bit more modelling to ensure that everything's going to be okay, or reassure us that something bad's not going to happen. So there might be a bit more thought goes into it, but yes, it's possible and people have done it.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. I was kind of worried there. I thought Alex might have stitched me up with that. Wasn't quite sure on that terminology. I got slightly nervous there for a second. So thanks for that.
That's right. I understood.
Okay, so I think the CPD QR code should be live now. So if people would like to scan their code and redeem your CPD points, that should be live and kicking now. I think that probably brings us to a close. I know Zoom will kick us out bang on past. So if there isn't any more questions, I'll probably start wrapping up there. Just give it a sec, just in case. Okay then. Well, I'll draw it to a close there then. And thanks again, Dominic and Simon, for joining us. I know you guys are busy, so we really appreciate you putting time aside to come and provide this information to our members. And I'd also like to thank Sabrina who puts this webinar, this series of webinars together. As you can imagine, it takes a great deal of work to piece one of these all together. So big thank you to Sabrina. And yeah, we hope to see you as you roll out more in this series of webinars. If you had feedback or you would like to request a specific subject, please complete our survey that will be circulating tomorrow, I believe. Also, if you'd like more information on our membership packages and how they might suit you, if you're not already a member and you'd like to join up, please feel free to get in touch with membership at retrofitworks.co.uk. And yeah, that brings us to a close. Thank you everyone for joining. We hope you found it insightful and useful. If you'd like to get in touch with either Dominic or Simon, please feel free. And yeah, thanks for joining us. We'll see you in the next one, hopefully. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.